Why have I quit my job? Why have I, bought a van? And why am I going to drive around the country? Well, I'm passionate about the idea that you need to be heard. And I want to stitch these stories together across the states. We're going to find the commonalities, and it's going to be really an amazing experience, and I look forward to you joining me on the jar.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Jar. It's your host, Ken. And not back to The Jar. Sorry. I got a little distracted by my own phone ringing. Welcome to Mental Health Today. It's my other part-time job. My daytime job is over. I'm on my nighttime job, which is the Mental Health Today podcast. And really did get inspired from The Jar as I was just talking a little bit earlier off the mic with Tami. We were just talking about the commercial in there, and what I say is I'm going to visit all these people, and I'm going to find that commonality and kind of stitch these stories together. And what that was mental health, and that's led me down this road to start this podcast back in March 3rd. We've already got about almost 30 episodes recorded, 30 great people to really share their story. Why they're in this field, what they're doing, what they hope to accomplish. And then that gives them a platform to share what they're doing. Hopefully we can move the needle a little bit on just really for people on the education part and awareness, and highlight some of these really interesting things that are going on in this space. Terry, welcome to the show. Or Tami, sorry, Terry and Tami. Thank you. Welcome to the show. How about a little bit about yourself? And, what are you doing in this space? Why are you in it? And what do you want to do? What do you think you can do in your part of the world?
So my name's Tami Blakely, and I am the founder and a certified equine facilitative life coach. And I am hopeful to, one person at a time, share what these magnificent, powerful animals have to offer, in the healing modality. And I originally got into the equine facilitative dynamic. I've had horses for years, and my kids and I competed and did all the things that horse women and horsemen do. But it wasn't until my son had a tragic accident that I really started to explore the healing that was taking place with me, even though I had no idea what was going on. So I got into the dynamic of helping others heal through this because of my own trauma. And that is what I'm hoping for people that don't have 14 horses in their backyard. I'm hopeful that I can bring this to people that don't have that.
So I think maybe give some, maybe describe where you're sitting right now. What part of the world are you in? What's your neighborhood look like?
So I live in Sonoita, Arizona. And as you can tell from the Vigas, we are very southwestern here. The Sonoita is close to the border in Arizona. So we're close to the Arizona-Mexico border. It is beautiful rolling grass hills with big craggy oaks. And it's very different than the cactus dynamic that you would think of within Arizona. But energetically, this place has it has so many more ions in the air. So when people first come to the ranch, their first thought that they say to me normally is, "I have so much more energy," and it's because there's so many the ionization here in this area. Patagonia, which is just like 20 miles from Sonoita, from the ranch, has the cleanest air that supposedly in the United States. They have just a really high ionization. So the area is stunning. It is just a beautiful dynamic that you would not even think was in Arizona.
That is, yeah. And you're living on a ranch with 14 horses, and we're using those as therapy horses.
That is correct. So,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. All 14 of them. So they all have jobs. So within the competitive dynamic of having horses, they are not the most stable creatures in their anatomy. And so they have a tendency to have problems that keep them from competing sometimes. And so doing the EFL work, they have a job for the rest of their life, and they really do enjoy the interaction and the intimacy that they share with people, and it's not on their backs. So it gives everybody a job. It's a compliment all the way around.
That is really and you're kind of rehoming these horses. You're getting them from competition, from race. These are race horses, or
Oh, so within the performance world, so a lot of the ones
oh,
that I
okay,
have
okay,
are,
within the performance. Okay, yeah.
yeah. And so within that dynamic, the rescues that we get in and rehab, they are relatively quickly rehomed, because the ones that I've had thus far anyhow have not been real severe traumatized cases. But the horses that I currently use within my therapy program are basically our retired performance horses. So my son
Okay.
did high school rodeo, and so they have a new job, and that job pertains to helping humans without needing to be ridden.
Wild. And what kind of programs do you run? Describe, if this sounded like something, wow, I could go hang out with a horse. What do I how do I
Ever We put you into an experience. So the experience with the horse has a lot to do with getting you into your body, getting you into this
Hmm,
present moment. So when you're in this mode with the horses of being in the present moment, you are gifted with this nonverbal communication. So when I first started doing the work,
interesting.
yeah, when I first got
Interesting.
into the work, like I said, was my son had a traumatic accident, and I don't have a lot of family. And at that point, I realized I didn't really have a really big support network. So I would sit with my horses at night, and I didn't know how I'd do the next day. When the van came to pick up my son in the wheelchair, I didn't know how I could do
Oof.
another day. I was so dark, and I was so sad that I would sit there. And so night after night, they would give me the strength, and the next day I could do it, and then I'd go sit with him again. And so it made me real curious why
Yeah, what's
I was
happening?
able
Yeah.
what's happening. So as I started diving into it, I found out that John Hopkins has done research with what goes on with this whole dynamic. It has to do with the horse's limbic brain, has to do with our limbic brain. It has to do with this regulation that takes place within our nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
There's so
Okay.
much science behind it. So it stopped me from being, just some yahoo with 14 horses in her backyard
Yeah,
and a
yeah.
brain,
Yes, right.
to having this actual science that goes behind what is truly happening within the brain's chemistry when we spend time with the horse. And so once I started to kind of knit all of those pieces together, it became just so important for me to share that. And I'm not sure why it's not screamed from the rooftops. What they are capable of
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
doesn't require it doesn't require words. It's nonverbal communication, but it's powerful for us to actually integrate change.
That is really cool. That I love the fact that when you came out of it, you, like, get online, you Google it, and you're like, "Oh, this is a
Yeah.
thing."
Yeah. Well, and again, because when you feel so isolated and alone, coming from somebody who, I've had my own business my whole life, and I'm really a pretty strong uh, human, right? Anything that goes wrong, I put my shoulder into it and I can handle it. Well, this brought me to my knees.
Mm,
I felt so
mm.
disconnected, and I was genuinely terrified every day and so alone. I mean, I would sit there at night and be like, I don't have the strength. I can't do this, God. I am so just, but again, the horses, what they're able to regulate not just our nervous systems but our energetic blocks. So these blocks that I was creating that I had no idea were even happening, they were able to come up and they would sit with these blocks to keep them moving. And that's how the next day I would be like, okay, I can do this, because they cleared it for me. And so when a horse, if you haven't spent any time around horses, so they have a way of showing us that they are processing our emotions. And so when they lick, when they chew, when they drop their heads, they have this is how they're releasing these basic, like,
Oh, yeah,
energetic blocks we are
yeah.
giving them. And so as you spend time with them, you start to realize these nonverbal cues that they're giving us, that are kind of validation of what they're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
it's
do
it's
I mean, when you say that, that's something interesting about horses different than other animals. They have very peculiar kind of body movements, the head movements, the sounds, the way the ear twitches, and if everything's a communication, there's a lot going
yeah.
on. Yeah.
They're masters of nonverbal. They're masters of
Yeah. Yeah.
energetic.
Yeah.
They
Interesting.
move their herd. They move their herd around in the herd dynamic simply by energy. It's not they. That's how they thrive. And their overdeveloped limbic brain is so overdeveloped. That is how they're capable to communicate with us in a nonverbal sense. Because our limbic brain and the human brain, it's responsible, right, for our desire for connection, our desire for spirituality. And the horse's brain, it is so overdeveloped that connection is almost like a form of like telepathy. So they're able to communicate with us through their limbic brain to our limbic brain. And it's a fascinating dynamic to say out loud, but when you experience it, you really stop and go, oh, I got it. I just got that from the horse. Yes, you do.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah, maybe that's why I do. Who hates horses?
That is an excellent question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I
Yeah.
just realized, like, who hates horses? Nobody hates horses. I mean, but I can
Well,
think,
and
like, people don't like dogs, people don't like there's, like you can almost there are cat people don't, but, like, everybody's a horse person. Maybe that's why.
yeah, even if you're not comfortable with them. I mean, my job is to solely put you in an experience that you're safe, you're
Yes,
supported,
yeah.
you're nurtured, and yet you have this opportunity to experience something outside of the five senses. And that's another thing that's so important. So our
Mm.
parasympathetic nervous system, when we're spending time with the horse in any dynamic at all, whether we're grooming them, spending time petting them, riding them, it slows our parasympathetic nervous system down. It slows it down enough that we can access these different levels of consciousness outside of our five senses that we're very comfortable with every day. This slows
Ah,
it enough to where we can just be open and hear things that we would not in our normal, five senses state of the day. Does that make sense?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to get people have to slow down, take a deep breath,
Yeah,
and actually process that. I think what you said is pretty powerful. If it's really does
right.
gets us past. I mean, our five senses in a way are almost like a handicap. Um,
Correct.
in a lot of ways, right? In a lot of ways, they're not that helpful quite often. Are you seeing what kind of people are going to best benefit from this? Physical trauma, emotional trauma, PTSD? Is it work? It just works for everybody? What are you seeing
It
so far?
I have not seen a dynamic that it doesn't work in. And so there are methods within, trauma, and the John Hopkins study in particular was based solely on what happens within the brain, just
Okay.
spending time with the horse without talking,
Yeah.
without communicating. And that study showed how we have different parts of the brain start to light up within this healing dynamic, and the other parts just start to kind of get a lot less brighter. And that's simply from spending the time with them. And so I have not seen, now whether they're writing for therapeutic writing, the advances that we can make when we're rehabbing a body, to what it happens in our brain. I have not found a dynamic that these magnificent, creatures of God have not benefited. And when you take into account entrainment, you and I right now talking, we're emotionally in training to a said
Hmm.
degree. When you take the horses in training, when you think, that here this horse is with this gigantic heart, this huge nervous system, these gigantic lungs. So their way of entraining with us is like, is basically this mega steroid driven entrainment. So people say, well, can't I just use my dog? Absolutely. There's not a natural form of a life out there that you couldn't use to get some degree of this entrainment. But the horse's system is so revved up and so big, we entrain a lot quicker, and it's so much more powerful because of the size of
Yeah.
their frequency.
When you describe the horse, right? It's this ginormous animal with a huge heart, huge central nervous system. And oddly, the part where it's probably most healing is when it's completely still and just breathing.
Yeah, and in some of these states that we are able to access within this present moment, where we're slowed down, we're in
Yes,
this
yeah.
really almost a trance-like state of breath work. And we have our heart rates, our respiratory rates, our nervous system, everything becomes in sync with the horse. And so that in itself is just amazing that you can entrain with another sentient being on command once you learn how to do it. And it's a beautiful, like I said, I have not found anything like it within, the psychotherapy and things that I have frequented in my life, that has been quite as powerful now that I know what's happening.
Yet now that you've got the science, you have the physical feeling, the sensations, the connection, and then you have the science. That's kind of cool. If you put those together, you're feeling it. You're
Right.
like, yeah, I can now recognize what's happening and describe it. Okay. Very
Right.
cool.
Right. Yeah. 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 It's no longer me with an idea in my backyard because it made me feel better.
Right. Right. Which
It's
is
let
totally
me show
legit.
you. It's totally
Um,
legit. But when I say there's an oxytocin release in your brain that will make you feel really happy and safe. And so
yeah.
there's also, that chemical hormonal tie-in that takes place with just spending time with them. I mean, again, I'm not sure why it's not screamed from the rooftops and dealt with in more of the traditional psychotherapy model, because it's a beautiful thing.
It's a Tell me about your therapist. What's it like when you get a new one? Do they know what to do? Like, how long does it take to train one? And then do the good ones know what they're doing?
So the best combination with what EFL works is to have a psychotherapist that has an understanding, but you have somebody like me that's the EFL
Not
side of
those
it that
therapists. I'm talking about the horses.
oh, I was talking about
Do they know what
the
they're
psychotherapist.
doing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No,
Oh, I'm
they know
sure
what
they know
they're
what
doing.
they're doing, right? I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about the
yeah. Well,
guys who are, what is that
you
like?
got it.
So back to that, right? Is a new
Okay.
one, because a new one comes off has one skill, and all of a sudden now he's got to sit there and learn how to connect, and eventually they figure out they're connecting, right?
The horse.
Yeah. Like, do they know the
So
job? Do they really professionals now, do you think?
I do think they become a little bit more understanding of what happens when the people come in the round pen with them.
Yeah.
So they appreciate the coherent being. They appreciate the boundary work we do, because when you come into the horse's boundary, it's to be respectful that you're entering their
Yes. Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Allows them to be open to that communication as well. And so they are very grateful for the understanding that comes from that dynamic. But
Cool.
gone into show barns and I've gone to horse shows and racetracks, and the entrainment can happen without the horse having even the subtlest idea that you're doing it, because
Okay.
it's a
Okay.
vibration. So if you start the coherent breath work, and it works with dogs, babies, I mean, coherent breathing from your heart space is something that the frequency is it's accessible for anybody. It's just really potent when it comes to that size heart from the heart of the horse.
And describe that. So say the word again.
So the coherent breathing is something that when you get in that consistent, 1,
Right.
2, 3, 4 in, 1, 2, 3, 4 out. So when you're in this
Yes. Okay.
coherence, right? So and you have this trance-like ness that comes over you while you're breathing, right? And you drop into the emotional state of the heart, because we know we have all these frequencies that come out of our brain, right? But a lot
Hmm.
of times we fail to realize that we have these frequencies that come out from our heart. When we are when they do brain scans, they have to block the heart scan, right? Because the heart has such a frequency that rings out of it as well. So when you're in this coherent state of breathing and you're really breathing into the heart space, and you're kind of vibrating out from your heart space this loving nature that you're embodying, that kind of is exactly what is given to the horse, and the horse feeds back to you. So this trance-like state, any
Ah.
horse, any animal, any sentient being can grasp within that. And so it's a powerful tool for people to learn with anything. It can be a crying baby.
Yeah. Okay. I know that technique. Get that
Yeah.
heart. Yeah. Align the heart. It's really aligning the heart. That's very interesting. I never realized what was happening with that, other than knowing what you're doing, but didn't realize that was a thing. And then doing it
Hmm.
with an animal, and doing it with a horse with this ginormous heart.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's like being in one of those machines one of those healing machines. 'Cause you really
Right, right.
literally has that energy pumping at you.
Right. Well, and again, if you know what you're looking for within the horse's nonverbal communication, you can see them. They lick, they chew. When you really get into states where your frequency's really been, taken really high, your vibrational state becomes so high, the horses will lay down, and then you're in meditative states. And you will have horses lay down, you'll have birds land in trees. I mean, it's stuff that you see like in a Snow White movie, right? It's just a beautiful dynamic that happens just because you're raising that vibrational state. And so again, yes, the horses are very open to it because that's pretty much how they live. They live in that state, that present moment state.
That is so cool. That is so cool.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
It is beautiful.
describe your programs. What's a program look like?
So the EFL program here at Blakely Ranch is pretty much there's a lot of different sections to it.
Mhm.
And so we have experiences within horseback riding where people can come out and and experience an adventure depending on what they want. It could just be riding on the trail. It could be looking for cattle. It could be anything. So we have experiences for horseback. We have experiences that simply include ground only. So where you're interacting with the horse on the ground. And again, all we do here and every program that we offer is all around the being in your body, being congruent with where you're at. And the minute you crawl up on top of a 1,200-pound animal, as I like to say, that the bullshit kind of stops there. If you crawl up on that horse and you think you're going to be like, I'm not afraid, I got this, it'll make sure to humble you because, they only ask for one thing. They ask for us to be congruent. So there's a whole bunch of different experiences that we put in. It is all about being in our body, learning this breathing and this congruency that we can be in, and allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to have this connection outside of our five senses with another sentient being. So we have several different types of ways that are catered to the individual. Blakely Ranch has one consistent vein, and that is to build on your intuitive nature. So whenever anybody comes here, it is based solely around what it is intuitively that they need to be able to be in that to trust their own intuition exclusively.
That's a great outcome, right? I was gonna, what do you expect, right? Which is just to build on your intuitive nature, build on what's already there.
Right. And in order for us to really, really utilize some of these gifts that we've forgotten, some of these this intuitive nature that we were born with, we have to get rid of a lot of what I call the human condition. And so in the programs that again is based around when stuff hits our scars, when things come into our field and we react to them, we have work to do. And so the work that I do and that we do at the ranch is when stuff hits us, we deal with it at that moment, and then we allow it to release. So we start getting some of this human condition out of the way, and then it frees us up to be in a different state so we can really trust our own intuitive nature and our own gut. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got a great, I mean, I love the philosophy of going there. And how long how long do people stay? They just come, it's obviously sometimes day trips, or is
So
there week-long
yeah.
adventures?
So we do the retreats that are generally like 3 to 5 days. You can come for just a weekend intensive. This program is geared towards getting out of the densely populated areas that most people live in now,
Yep.
and being a little uncomfortable of not having all of those connections, I guess you could say, with our cell phones and things like that. And so it's about getting away from that. So on a daily program is not really something we're emphasizing. It's more
Yeah.
so get you out and reprogram. And so when you go back in, you can live by contrast of, this is how I want to see my life, and this is not. So it gives a really sharp contrast between some of the things that we've gotten a little bit too used to. And so we make way for some of the things we might have forgotten about our true nature.
I agree. Yeah, we've definitely strayed far away from that. I have found I've been really lucky. I've had 2 spots where I've been able to have an office view of, outside. And I just had one, this last place I was at, it was on a porch, and screened in porch. like on those old fashioned screened-in porches. And it was on the second floor of this little Airbnb. And I dragged my table up there from the van and just made a desk out of it just so I could stare at the street and listen to the birds all around me. And, just get really, felt like I was a little bit in nature almost. And just lovely. It was just lovely.
Yeah. I think that's an important dynamic. I mean, when I'm surrounded by nature, it allows me to be in a different state of mind, and we have gotten so numb. I mean, we don't have to know north, south, east, and west. We don't necessarily live by the sun's up, the sun's down. And so and so I think some of that stuff, our normal rhythms are kind of disturbed, and this is a way to reset that and kind of remember.
Yeah. I had asked, I kind of redirected an answer, but it was an answer I want to come back to, or a question I want to come back to, is on the therapist. So you have therapists on site as well. So maybe kind of explain how that works because you started down that road. How does it work between the horses and the therapist and the actual therapist?
The model that works the best is that the psychotherapist is there for those, because what we do is give you the opportunity to come up with your own answers on the life coaching side, right? But the therapist comes in when there is heavier trauma, and they don't need to have an understanding of the horse. That's my job. And so they offer the complement of what it is that the individual needs within the real traumatized state of healing. So I don't ever offer advice like a therapist would, but the therapist can. So my job is to simply put these people in, as a life coach, situations where they come up with their own answers. So my job is to be curious. The psychotherapist's job is to kind of, dissect and give them tools in that respect. So that's kind of the functioning model of EFL, is you have the psychotherapist in it, and then the life coach that's able to kind of, allow the repetitive weekly, or what I'm saying? So it keeps the ball rolling without having to sit down with your psychotherapist, every week.
What's it feel like, or what did it feel like when the first person left and just gave you that hug and was like, wow, okay, I think that was amazing. And you realized, okay, this is amazing. It isn't just me, and it's just not the researchers. It's a real thing that's repeatable.
Well, I think I can answer that with saying how uncomfortable it was in the very beginning. When I started doing it, I wanted instant gratification. And so I had to become so comfortable, really uncomfortable, because I was like, did you get it?
Did you feel it? Did you feel it?
Was it there? And so what happens a lot of time within this stuff, that it's almost a couple of day dynamic. So they go home, and in their dream state, they have these different dreams, and they wake up the next day and they have these aha moments. Sometimes when people leave the session, they have such a huge oxytocin drip that they're almost high. A lot of them, they can't articulate what just happened.
They can't talk. They don't.
Right. So we follow up a few days later, and they have to journal, and they have to try to articulate what's going on with that. So the instant gratification sometimes isn't as monumental as I would like it to be. So I've had to get really comfortable with being like, I'm not going to get that validation.
I know that would be, I was thinking that would be like this, great moment, to be a big hug, and there'd be tears at the car. And then, but you're right. They're actually, they don't know what, they really don't know what happened. If it's that powerful, they will be totally, like you said, high, and then also dazed, because
correct.
It's dazed because you've also been hit with this radar, right? You've just been near this super healing power that's been emitting into your body. That's going to be a little it's almost a little trauma in a way. It takes a minute to kind of take it on. Interesting.
Right. Well, it opens the floodgates are something that's a saying we have, is that when these floodgates get open, we only want to let one horse out of the crowd. We don't want the whole stampede. So we try not to get the floodgates to really open up and have a lot of stuff hit at once, because you're right, it can be overwhelming and it can be relatively traumatizing, but the horse in the round, and when we're in this environment with the horses, I'll give you an example. I had in one of my sessions, I had a nonverbal autistic man, and it's powerful because in the nonverbal state, they have just, that's how he lives. He lives his life in a nonverbal state. So him in there with the same horse, her name was Wish. And Wish decided that she understood that he was autistic. She knew he did not want to be touched. She knew she could stand next to him and let him touch her. So she just stayed there and held her head kind of down by his feet, and he would pet her. And so they have a thorough understanding of where energetically that person is. So in and I'll tell you this by comparison, that same horse in another instance, in another session, I had a woman that was very incongruent within her storytelling. So she would tell stories about her life and how she viewed herself and others, but they were not congruent. They weren't honest. And the horse knew it. And so this same horse that knew not to touch the nonverbal autistic man came up to her and grabbed the back of her pants and just lightly nipped on her pocket and gave her a little nudge. And she was like, "Why'd you do that?" And I was like, basically telling you to cut it out. She just wants you to be honest. She doesn't care about the story. She just doesn't want you to bullshit her.
She's just feeling bullshit. Actually, it's weird. She can't hear any words. But she just hears incongruency. You're not being straightened up.
Exactly. And yet, like I said, that's how
bites her booty.
Yeah. She was like, "You just stop that." And so the same horse, they know where you're at, and they meet you right there as long as you're honest. That's all they want.
She's a great therapist.
Oh, she's amazing. Like, and that kind of stuff is my validation. When I see these horses be like, "Hey, cut it out. That's not true." And then the people go, "Oh, I guess she's right." And it's like, yeah, she's right.
It's okay to be vulnerable.
Exactly.
How about two things with closing thoughts, and then maybe how people can find you?
Okay. So in closing, I would say if there is any dynamic that I would like to cater to, it would be for the individual who feels disconnected, who feels isolated, for the individual that's craving, that feeling that we all want of that heart cracking open. We're open, we're vulnerable, we're feeling the world around us. Anybody that needs that experience, the horses are the way to go, because we have a lot of trauma around people, but the horses are as close to God, is what I say, as we can get on this earth.
I love that.
Yeah. And so we have several retreats and different intensives offered throughout the year. And you can find us at blakelyranch.com. And again, it is for any dynamic that you can think of. There's not an avenue that I cannot say that it could not benefit people.
I love it. It's been pretty interesting, Tami. I gotta say, I love it. I love what you're doing. I love horses. Never really understood the attraction. Now I totally get it. Well, now I'm very curious. I'm very
good.
curious.
Your way to Sonoyta then.
Well, and I'm now gonna I gotta look up the ranch as well, and I'm gonna add your city or the town or the village, whatever it is, right there on the border. I'm gonna add it to my list. I'm coming to see you. I want to come see the horses. I want to come see the ranch. I'm excited. I would love to have you experience it, and I'm so honored to be on here. Thank you for taking your time with me. Yeah, well, thank you, Tami, for being part of it. We're just trying to create a little beehive of these kinds of episodes where people can find, what's going on in the mental health space. And there's so many interesting things being done. I'm pretty hopeful that, like I said, we need more screaming at the top of the rooftops for quite a few of them. I totally agree. The more we can get, the better. That's for sure. Thanks, everybody. You can for listening. Anybody, we've got a couple. Terry was on here giving us a comment. We got some love from her. Got a couple other people watching. Super appreciated. If you are listening to this or watching it here, or watching it live, I should say, or the video, you can also catch all of these are on audio on all your channels, iTunes, Spotify, and it's under Mental Health Today. Thanks again, Tami, very much for being a guest, and I'll see you on the other side. Thank you. Yeah, loose, baby.
We're about to go and make this vessel with these great professionals at Public Glass. We're not part of the community, but we're from the outer family of glass blowing. Yeah, we're gonna go make a magical giant jar with optic lenses so that if you turn it, it changes all the time. So if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.